Okay, hi guys, how you doing? This is a presentation about the circle of fifths, which we've been referencing slowly over the last couple of lessons, but it's really just important for you to try and recognize its use more than anything else. There's time to get your head around it, and it may take many, many months to fully learn it, but uh, appreciating its use is really what this is all about, and then that may be kind of the seed that you require to spur you on to stick with it and learn it. It's a system to remember key signatures. Now remember the difference between a key and a scale. The scale is the notes from a given key in ascending or descending order, and using the diatonic scale, there you could start on different notes of the key, and you'd have different modes of the scale. But basically, it's key signatures and how many sharps or flats are within each, and how they're connected. Okay, it's quite a useful point. So from Berklee College, which is a famous music school in America, the circle of fifths is arguably the most helpful way of visually organizing Western music theories. 12 chromatic pitches for learning. So there are 12 scales, or 12 keys, because of the chromatic scale. Okay, there's actually 24 keys because there's relative minors as well. But seeing the notes laid out in a circle will help you unlock an understanding of how major and natural minor scales are organized and how they're related to each other. So there's this thing called the relative minor. They are related. All right. So to build the circle of fifths, you will need to know or be able to work out the following. So you will need to know the 12 notes of the chromatic scale, which are A sharp, B, C, C sharp, D sharp, E, F sharp, G sharp, and then the 13th note would be A because you'd start it again. Okay. Now, there are, if you were going backwards, you could call that A flat to G flat to F, E to E flat, to D to D flat, C, B flat, and then A again. You will need to know that the fifth note of each key that we work on, you will need to be able to identify that. So, for example, in the key of C major, the fifth note is C, D, E, F, G. And the relative minor can be found by identifying the sixth note of a key. Okay, we've done work-throughs on the board with this, but just to remind yourselves, the fifth note will give you a clear indication of what the next key is going to be in the circle of fifths, and the sixth note is the relative minor. You also need to be able to identify the seventh note of the scale, and that will become clear why as we move forward. So let's begin with the key of C major. We know, because we've done this a million times now, C major is a scale with all natural notes. That means there are no sharps or flats, and that's why we learn it first. To find the next scale on the circle of fifths, and the use of the next scale on the circle of fifths, is that this will be a scale that has one sharp. Okay, so we learn the scales not according to their note names in the alphabet, but we learn the scales in order of how many sharps there are within them. So we know that C is 0, and the next scale will be the fifth note of the C scale. So that is G, C, D, E, F, G, and that will be the start note of the second scale on the circle of fifths. Okay. So if we were, well, what you could do now is you could just rearrange in your head or a piece of paper. You could rearrange the notes of the G major scale, and you would be very easily using the tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone pattern. You'd very easily realize that one sharp is in that scale. Okay, and as we go through the circle of fifths, the next scale will have 2 sharps, and then the following will 3, 4, and then 5, and then 6. Then we convert to flats, and then we end up with 6 flats, 5 flats, 4 flats, 3 flats, 2 flats, and then back 1 flat, and then back to C at the top. The relative minor is the 6th note of any scale that we're in. And you will know from working out G, the key of G, that the sharp that is introduced appears on the 7th note. So if we were to do that, that would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, which is the 7th note, and then back to G. Okay. So examples. C major, no sharps. 5th note of C is G. Then we follow the same pattern of tones and semitones for every major scale. G, tone to A, tone B, semitone to C, tone to D, tone to E, tone to F sharp, semitone back to G. The 7th note was the F sharp. Okay. And the 5th note of that scale is D. So our next scale will be D major. That will have the F sharp in it, plus 1 new sharp, which will appear on the 7th note of the scale. And then, so if you can, just to confirm that, if you're not sure, D, tone to E, tone to F sharp, semitone to G, tone to A, tone to B, tone to C sharp, semitone back to D. So what this is doing, this circle of fifths, and learning this system, is stopping you having to do the tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone thing every time. Because all you've got to remember is that each scale introduces a new sharp on the 7th note, and each scale includes the previous sharps that have occurred as we go around. And the start note for each scale is the 5th note of the scale before it. So if we've started on D, for example, here, the 5th note is A. A will have F sharp, which appeared in the G scale. It will have the C sharp that appeared in this D scale. And then it will have the new sharp on the 7th note, which is G sharp. 5th note of A is E. E will have F sharp from the G scale. It will have C sharp from the D scale, G sharp from the A scale, and the new sharp on the 7th note, which is D sharp. Then we move forward to B, which is the 5th note of E. B has F sharp from the G scale. It has the C sharp from the D scale, G sharp from the A scale, and D sharp from the E scale, plus 1 new one, A sharp. Okay. Where it gets tricky is this F sharp major scale. Because from looking at B already, it has the 5 sharps that you see on a piano already. But for the circle of fifths to work in a mathematical way, for it to be visual and for the system to work, what we do is we have the note F sharp. We can have one of each note written down in front of us. Okay, so in this case, take away the sharps, be F, G, A, B, C, D, and E. Of course, we have the F at the end. That's the only time, because it's the same note at the start and the end. But in this case, if we were to go from F sharp tone to G, G sharp, sorry, tone to A sharp, semitone to B, tone C sharp, tone D sharp. A tone from D sharp is actually F, but because we've already got the F note in the F sharp here, we refer to F as E sharp in this case. Okay? So it is, F could be the same as E sharp. It can be referred to as E sharp. Likewise, B sharp here can be, is the same note as C. Okay, so that's a bit confusing, but it needs to be that way for the system to work, because once we get to the 5th note of this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, C sharp or D flat, we will end up going back on ourselves. We will have 5 flats and then 4 flats, 3 flats, 2 flats, 1 flat, back to the start. Okay. So here is quite a complicated version of the circle of fifths, but it gives us a lot of information. So on the outer circle, we have our keys in the order that they appear. C has 0 sharps. Okay, how do I know that? Because on the key signature, which is here, ignoring the chords, on the key signature there is no sharp sign. Then the 5th note of C is G. That's our next scale. It has a new note. F sharp is the sharp. Here we have the 5th note of G, which is D, so on and so forth. So that's given us the keys in the order that they appear. On the inner circle, looking just by the treble clef, it tells us how many sharps or flats there are in those scales. I want you to ignore for now the middle 2 rings. They are to do with chords, and once we've done diatonic chords in more detail, this will come into play. But for now, you should be learning the outer note being C, the relative minor being the middle, the one underneath the note. Sorry, not the one underneath the note. The relative minor being the 6th note of the C scale, in this case A minor, it's this chord here. G will be E minor, D will be B minor. 2 ways you can remember that. It's either the 6th note of the scale, or you can count back from C 3 semitones, or from whatever note you're on, 3 semitones, it will give you the relative minor. Okay. So at this stage, you're just looking at the outer circle and then the relative minor of each key. What information does it contain then? It has all 12 key signatures. It has the sharps or flats that occur within each key. It tells us that each key is separated by a 5th, the 5th note of each scale. If moving clockwise, it's actually a 4th if we move the other way. And it can be used to identify the similarities in keys. So we know that G is very similar to C, with the exception of the note F being made to be an F sharp. Take the time to look at the PowerPoint and watch this video. It's a very useful video, and there's some references. So hopefully you'll find that really, really useful. This is one we'll probably need to revise. It may be worth you looking at different simplified versions of the circle of fifths. There is one in the music room within the college, but the most important thing is that you learn the keys in the order, how many sharps or flats are within each, and the relative minors.